Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome today to the Practice 3 Watchalong for the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix. Welcome also to qualifying day for the Hungarian Grand Prix as well. Hopefully you guys are doing well, hopefully having the best day you can possibly be having, whatever time or even day it is in your part of the world. And yeah, hopefully you're doing as best as you can be doing. Of course, this is the final race before we get to the summer break, which will be, well, the distance between this race and the next Grand Prix at Spa is, 4 weeks, I think. So, yeah, this is the final hurdle before that summer break. Of course, the Hungaroring, very challenging circuit, especially, I would say, more so over a single lap rather than the race. In the race, in the dry, it's not too hard for the drivers and the teams as it, say, used to be. I will say, though, in the wet, I don't think we will get wet conditions this weekend, but in the wet, this track is pretty tough. But I think definitely today in qualifying, later especially, we're going to see some very spectacular laps. Of course, the title race is really hotted up in the last fortnight. Now it's a lot closer in the championship between Verstappen and Hamilton. So I'm really looking forward to today because I think definitely between those two at the very top of the timesheets, I think we're going to be in for a very close fight between Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas at the very top. And then the rest of the field, I think, will be pretty close as well, and also very interesting to see where they all end up. But before we get into, what's happened in the last fortnight, talking a bit about that, and also giving a slight mini preview into this session, which gets underway, as you can see, in about 12.5 minutes from now. Let's first get into the results of the last practice session, which was practice 2 yesterday afternoon. So Valtteri Bottas topped the session from Lewis Hamilton second, Max Verstappen in third. Verstappen 0.3 of a second down. Now, that's not necessarily a surprise that Mercedes is so quick on the Friday. Red Bull don't tend to be as quick on a Friday as they are on a Saturday. That's not a massive surprise. But also, I do expect Mercedes to have the slight, especially with the upgrades they brought and the way this circuit is, I do expect Mercedes to have a slight edge over Red Bull around this circuit, because I do believe this circuit just about suits their car a tad more than the Red Bull, it suits them. So it's not really a surprise Mercedes were 1-2 yesterday. And then Verstappen third, Esteban Ocon fourth. Ocon has had a new chassis put in, so maybe that's why Ocon was performing poorly in the last few races, because the chassis he had wasn't quite just good enough and just wasn't really having a good time with it. And then you have Perez fifth, and then Gasly, Alonso, Vettel, Norris and Stroll completing the top 10. Leclerc and Sainz 11th and 12th. I've got to say, that's very surprising from Ferrari. They were so slow in practice 2 yesterday. I'll be honest, I expected Ferrari to be, say, 4th, 5th, 6th, around that area at the absolute worst, because the last time we came to a circuit like this was really Monaco, you'd have to say. And of course, at Monaco, they had maybe not overall the entire weekend the quickest car, because Red Bull, I think, were very quick and probably the quickest in the race in Monaco. But they were easily quick enough to compete for victory and pole position, as we saw that weekend. So it is a bit of a surprise so far that Ferrari have not really, and I think they will show more pace today, because they do tend to be quicker on a Saturday than they are on a Friday, and more stunning, say, on a Saturday than they are at any part of the weekend, really. But yeah, I was surprised that Ferrari is so far down, because you'd think, given the strengths of the car, I mean, yeah, there are some fast corners at the Hungaroring, but you do have, turn 1, turn 3, bit of a slow corner or a medium speed corner, say with lower fuel, and then you got, a chicane, I think turn 6, 7, I think it is, maybe 7, 8, and then towards the end of the lap you got some slower corners. So I am surprised, like I said, that Ferrari just weren't quite up there, say, with Ocon, Perez, Gasly there. Bit of surprise. And then Ricciardo 13th, and then Raikkonen, Russell, Latifi, Tsunoda, Mick Schumacher, Giovinazzi, and Mazepin. The reason Tsunoda ended up 17th is because he had, I believe, a spin and hit the barriers. So that's why Yuki Tsunoda ended up in 17th. And as you can see, he only used one set of tyres. So clearly illustrating there that he did have an issue, that he caused by himself. But looking at that order, I mean, like I said, the top three is not a surprise. I would be a bit surprised if it was a Mercedes front row, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Mercedes pole position later. And then the Alpines being so far up, not a surprise. Alpine do go better at circuits like this. Not a surprise really that Gasly's up there because Pierre Gasly is just great. I will say Aston Martin were a bit surprising, 8th and 10th. I didn't think Aston Martin would really do much of anything over a single lap, even in the practice sessions on a Friday. And yeah, Ferrari, a bit surprising that they're so far down. So I'd say, I mean, obviously we're going to see what Verstappen can do compared to the Mercedes, but I wouldn't really look out for that in terms of excitement at the moment in this session coming up. I'd look more so to the midfield, because I think in the midfield we've got a bit more of an interesting battle, because it looks as though, say, Alpine, McLaren, Ferrari. Like I said, I do think Ferrari will show more speed in this session, and I do think those three teams, maybe Aston Martin as well, if they can keep up that performance, I think those teams, they all look about in the same area. And then obviously the AlphaTauri, it's hard to say really where they are. I mean, Gasly, yeah, is up in 6th, but Tsunoda was so far down because of his accident, so it's hard to say exactly where AlphaTauri, are. But looks as though those four teams are quite close. And as I move on to some pictures here that I'll be showing, of course, during the session. Yeah, the midfield going to be very close. Ferrari and Alpine, I do think will still be pretty strong. Maybe not as strong as I thought they were going to be, but I still think they'll be pretty strong in this session. McLaren, they'll feature somewhere because they're always so quick. Aston Martin and AlphaTauri, I have to say, a bit surprising, their performance so far this weekend. So we'll see what they can do, but you'd expect, given the strengths and weaknesses of the Aston Martin and AlphaTauri cars, that they would drop back and they wouldn't be, say, as quick as a Ferrari and Alpine. So we'll see. But given what we saw in practice 2, it really looks like it's up for grabs between 4 or 5 teams. So we'll have to just see what happens there. But as I'm sure you guys know, it has been a very eventful fortnight or 10 days, 11 days, whatever you want to call it, since the British Grand Prix. Of course, my last upload was reviewing the incident between Hamilton and Verstappen, which I know plenty of you have seen. It's got about 23,000 views at the moment. So, yeah, I know plenty of people and plenty of you guys have seen it and, made you view. I do want to say also, thank you guys so much for not, resorting to insults and accusations, not just of me, but of other people. Because I did actually post a pinned comment saying, please don't do that. And thankfully, I don't think anyone really did that. So thank you for, not doing that. And in the future, please keep doing that. Because, I mean, I don't really care whether you disagree with me or not. I just don't want it to resort to that because it's just, below the belt stuff. But yeah, everyone's had their opinion since that Grand Prix, and there's been lots of wild things that have been said, accused in the last fortnight. Red Bull, I have to say, if we start with the two teams, I mean, Red Bull, I think, have overreacted massively. I understand he's their number one driver, Verstappen. They love him to death, and, they'll have a deep relationship with him because he's been with the Red Bull Academy for so long. I totally get that, but at the end of the day, and I know the impact and all was big, because I think Horner, the team principal, of course, said it was the impact of a small airplane crash, which yeah, I understand why they were very angry, but I don't think, given what we know the stewards are going to do when it comes to certain incidents, I don't understand really why Red Bull asked for a further review. I just don't get it. You know, a further review of the incident, and the stewards thankfully rejected that request on Thursday at this weekend's Grand Prix, because at the end of the day, you know, and I think I said this in that analysis video, that the penalty Hamilton got, given the penalties available to the stewards, was really the only penalty he could be given. I don't believe it was bad enough to be a 10-second stop-go, because I just don't believe it was bad enough for that. But it wasn't, say, it wasn't an incident where it was only deserving of a 10-second penalty. They almost need, and I think I said it in that video, they need a new penalty to make it a bit more punishable for the driver in that type of instance. But I don't understand why Red Bull decided to appeal it, because the stewards, I mean, they've never really done, you know, say, punish a driver further later on, really. I can't remember really any real instances where that's happened, you know, at a later Grand Prix, unless it's been an obvious case of, you know, just awful driving, of, you know, deliberately taking someone out, which I know everyone's saying Hamilton did, you know, did that on purpose and all of that, which is complete bullshit, I have to say. So yeah, Red Bull really should have just let it go. Yeah, I know it was disappointing, and they're in the title fight and all of that. I get that, but the situation was never going to improve. What they needed to do, by the way, just to mention, the tyre compounds this weekend are C4, C3, C2, so a step softer than the Grand Prix 2 weeks ago at Silverstone, as the session will be underway in about, 2.5 minutes from now. What I was going to say was, you know, the incident happened. They just need to move on from it. The stewards, they gave out the punishment, really the only punishment I think they could have given out. Yeah, it didn't really punish Hamilton in the end because he won the race, and I do think Lewis Hamilton did get a bit lucky to win that race because, well, of that incident, the red flag happening, because we don't know how much damage he would have had to his front wing, and also Charles Leclerc having a bit of engine trouble definitely, you know, helped Hamilton massively win the Grand Prix. But, you know, it happened. These things happen. Just move on. If they keep going on about it and calling for, you know, race bans and all this, then it's not going to improve the situation. You can't go back and stop it from happening. There's no way they're going to claw back the points maybe they thought they would have got from that Grand Prix. It's just not going to happen. It was unfortunate what happened. I think everyone can agree on that, and I think both drivers would agree with that. F1 just needs to move on, because, you know, if we keep going on about it and keep, you know, the teams keep raising the stakes almost with certain comments in the media, then it's just going to get worse and worse. So I just really hope, as the session will be getting away just a minute, I'll thankfully stop talking about it. And I'm really going to try and not talk about it as much as I can, because I think everybody on this website even has had their say, and I don't really think there's much more to say, but I just really hope people this weekend especially just move on, because it happened. It was unfortunate, but shit happens. It's Formula One. It's bound to happen eventually. I think F1 was... That's another thing. That I think we've already been saying this season, that with Hamilton and Verstappen, because of how aggressive they are and how, you know, talented they are, it was bound to happen, them two having an accident. Very similar to, you know, 2017 when Hamilton and Vettel had their title fight. I think we said it back then. It was bound to happen. It was always going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not, you know, if, say. So it's not really a surprise, to be honest. And if you go back and look at the incident, the full incident from the first, you know, the lights going out, I don't even know how they didn't make contact at the exit of turn 1, or even down that first DRS straight, to be honest. as the session will be getting underway right now, I think. Yeah, it has. I'm just gonna get the ticker up now. And there you go. So practice 3, guys, is underway. And let me just adjust the position of the timer there. There you go. So yeah, 59 minutes to go. We have got a car on track. It is our favourite driver, Mr. Mazepin, who comes out on circuit. Yeah, one car on the track at the moment. And hopefully some other cars out there. But yeah, just to update you guys. So the C4, C3 and C2 compounds of other tyres available to the teams and drivers this weekend. And also very hot today. Very, very hot. It's already, 1 p.m. Or not, 12 p.m., sorry, local time in Budapest. And it's already 26 degrees Celsius and about 50 degrees Celsius for the track temperature. So qualifying later, if this heat keeps up, it's going to be very, very hot. Track temperature now up to 52 degrees Celsius just in the past 5 minutes. So, yes, a very, very hot track, very hot day. And if that maintains itself in the Grand Prix tomorrow, then I think definitely tomorrow we'll get a 2-stop race because the the load carried around this circuit on the tires, especially in the fast corners, and the heat, I think will make it pretty hard to do a 1-stop race around this circuit unless you have, a big enough gap and you aren't really racing that many cars around this circuit. But before, as Mick Schumacher, by the way, is on circuit as well. Before we get into the session, just going to have a quick sip of water because I'm very thirsty. So I'll just quickly do that and then I'll come back in just a moment. I say a sip of water, downing an entire bottle of water more like. Anyway, Mazepin and Schumacher have started their laps. Mick Schumacher now into turn 2 and now through turn 3. Turn 2 with the older generation cars, so from 10, 15 years ago, did used to be a slow corner, but with these cars, now they're so aerodynamically efficient, and of course, these cars approaching that corner, they approach the corner a lot quicker with the V6 turbo, power units and that. It's not really a slow corner anymore, turn 2, in qualifying trim at least. In the race, it is a slow corner for sure with the fuel on board as Yuki Tsunoda comes out on track, which is not a surprise because he didn't do much running yesterday. But yeah, turn 2, not really a slow corner anymore, more of a medium speed corner, especially with that newer line they take, not really hitting the apex, but going round the outside of the corner and making it a bit tighter on the entry of turn 3 as Mazepin has completed a lap. Now has Mick Schumacher, so 1 and 2 for Haas. At the moment, of course, that will not remain that way. Mick doing a 122.8, which is pretty slow. They are on the soft compound tyre as well. You would have noticed when I showed the practice 2 results that a lot of teams used a lot of medium and hard compound tyres. Of course, they want to save as much tyres as they can, or soft tyres as they can for today. So that's why they did that, and also race simulation data that they picked up yesterday would have been crucial, which is another reason why they would have ran on that tyre quite a bit yesterday. Tsunoda is coming to the end of his lap. Tsunoda is on his out lap. He's on the medium compound tyre. Here's a replay. Him at turn 4 yesterday, turned in, rear end said, fuck no, am I doing that? And he went into the barriers where infamously, Felipe Massa had his accident in 2009. Thankfully, I don't think the barriers there are as bad as they used to be. And Tsunoda, of course, yesterday, because of that spin, then went out of the session as he now starts his lap. And now passes a slow car. I think it's, yeah, it was Kimi Räikkönen, I think, who's just come out on an outlap as well. As Yuki Tsunoda now coming up to the end of the first sector. And already 2/10 up on a harder compound of tyre. When it comes to the tyres this weekend, shouldn't really be that big of a difference between the soft to the medium and the medium to hard. Between the soft and the medium, it should be about 4 or 5 tenths of a second, and then medium to hard should be about 5 to 6 tenths of a second, say over a single lap. But definitely for the race tomorrow, you'll want to be starting on the medium at the absolute softest tyre, and you will not want to touch the soft tyre at all, because the soft tyre around this circuit, especially with the heat we have so far this weekend, will die within probably 6 or 7 laps. I mean, we saw it in last year's Hungarian Grand Prix with Charles Leclerc. When he put soft tyres on after running intermediates in the first 4 or 5 laps, he was running about 4 seconds a lap slower than the leaders and holding up a massive train of cars. And was actually one of the slowest cars on the circuit, I remember. He was that slow on that compound. So, yeah, using the soft tyre for the race will be pretty much a death sentence if you choose to go that route, as Yuki Tsunoda does go up into P1. So let me just update that. So Tsunoda up to first place, as also not just Kimi Räikkönen we have now on an outlap, it's also Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Carlos Sainz has I'd say a pretty good record at the Hungaroring. 2015, I can't remember if he scored points in 2015, but I do know, I think 2016 and 2017 especially, was very good here, where I think he finished the race in 7th place. Very good here. And then in 2019, he finished 5th for McLaren. And then in 2020, last year, I think he finished 8th or 9th. So he's got a pretty good record here, Sainz. Maybe not as good as he has around Silverstone for, say, race results. But this is another circuit, I'd say, where Carlos Sainz would be expecting himself to be, you know, up there somewhere competing for strong positions, as Carlos Sainz now starts his first flying lap on the medium compound tyres. He flies through turn 1, slight oversteer on the exit, and now he backs off. So maybe that slight oversteer was a mistake, or he just wants to go again, as he's letting through now a Haas car. Kimi Räikkönen is on a timed lap at the minute. I don't know what his sector times are. Well, there you go. He finishes his lap and goes P1 by 1.2 seconds. So Kimi Räikkönen is up into first place on a 1:19.5, which is pretty quick time from Räikkönen. So early in the session. So that's a good time there from Räikkönen, as Lewis Hamilton looks as though he'll be coming out on track in the next, say, 5 minutes or so. Just saw Valtteri Bottas waving to the crowd. By the way, great to see a good, decent-sized crowd at the circuit at the moment, as Max Verstappen is, well, not in the car at the moment, so he won't be coming out probably for another 5 to 10 minutes at least, I would say. As now Sky F1 have gone to an ad break. So whilst they've done that, I'm going to try and read out some comments from you guys. Just want to say, though, again, which I normally do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we'll be live later on today for the qualifying watch-along. The qualifying watch-along will be getting underway at 1:30 p.m. UK time, with the session starting about half an hour after that. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll have 3 streams for you: the race preview, the race watch-along, and then the race review as well. And if there is any incidents to analyse, then, of course, I will be uploading a video on that probably on the Monday around lunchtime, as I usually do. So don't forget to subscribe, guys, to the channel for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe right there, or just go to my channel page and do it there. Whilst you're there, hit the notifications bell. Don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. As we're, for the channel, we're not too far away from 11,000 subs, which is pretty good. Anyway, let's read out some comments here. Probably going to be some comments to do with Hamilton Verstappen. Silverback says Red Bull and Merca such crybabies. Get in the car and race. This is going to make the situation worse with all the Karens and 3-year-old mental maturity. Well, yeah, I completely agree. And like I said, what happened. There's nothing that the teams are going to be able to do that's going to be able to stop or alter what happened in terms of punishment or anything like that. Just need to move on and deal with the future. Because, and I say with Red Bull's point of view, the reason I say that especially is because, yes, Verstappen, it's unfortunate that he got took out the race and all of that, but if Verstappen goes on this season to lose the World Championship, they cannot Red Bull blame him not winning the championship on that one incident. Now, I will say, singular incidents can decide titles, but if you look at most seasons where there's a title race, in most of the title races, those drivers that do suffer a bit of bad luck or, that whatever incident happens, there is an ability to still, win the championship from that point on. For example, with Sebastian Vettel in 2018, when he had his crash at the Hockenheimring, yes, that was a massive moment, and it did really go on to lose him the championship because Ferrari's and Sebastian Vettel's momentum were just completely destroyed at that race that they'd built up from previous races. And also, any confidence they had really just went. But they still had plenty of races to, build back momentum and confidence and still beat Lewis Hamilton. So even though that incident in Hockenheim was a big one, Ferrari still had plenty of time, and Sebastian Vettel that season also still had plenty of time to make sure that it wasn't the deciding factor, but they didn't. And I'm just concerned with Verstappen and Red Bull that incident with Hamilton might go on to be, as by the way, Lewis Hamilton is now on circuit, on an outlap on a soft compound tyre. I'm just concerned, like I said, that if, with that incident happening, I'm just concerned that Red Bull are never going to really recover from it and never really forgive, say, the people involved. So hopefully they don't. I really hope they don't, hold on to it like they have been in the last couple of weeks, because it's not going to get better. It's not going to benefit them in any way. Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen, because I think if Red Bull, if they hold on to it too much, and if they let it affect them, I think is what I'm trying to say. If they let it affect them too much, then what will happen is what happened in 2018, except Verstappen and Red Bull will basically play the role of Vettel and Ferrari, where Mercedes just have all the momentum and, knock their rival out of the park and end up winning the championship. They need to make sure that doesn't happen, and they need to make sure that they don't allow it to happen as well, because I think that's probably more possible, them allowing it to happen rather than it actually happening. As Lewis Hamilton has started his first flying lap, also Antonio Giovinazzi has joined the track on an outlap, as Kimi Räikkönen gone back to the top of the timesheets. So there you go, Räikkönen back into P1 on a 1:19.2, but Hamilton already 0.3 of a second quicker than Kimi Räikkönen in the first sector alone. Not a surprise, he's in a Mercedes. As he comes through now the turn 6 and 7 chicane, now through turn 8. Bit of oversteer through the middle of 8. Turn 9 didn't look great, but didn't look really that bad either. Turn 11 was fine. And he's 5.5 tenths up on Raikkonen. So a good first early run for Lewis Hamilton as he now comes through to turn 13. Very slow corner. Hitting the apex there nicely. And now into the final corner of turn 14. And rear end all over the place. But he is still surely going to go P1 with this lap. And he does by almost 7 tenths of a second. But he could have gone probably half a second quicker on that lap. So there is a lot more speed already is shown from Lewis Hamilton there. So Hamilton is up into P1. And then it's Raikkonen, Sainz, Tsunoda, Schumacher, Mazepin. And the only other car is on track that I think will be setting a lap in a moment will be Antonio Giovinazzi, as there's a replay of Carlos Sainz locking up his inside front. By the way, I don't know if I said this or not, but Lewis Hamilton did his run on the soft compound tyre. As just want to read this comment from Oliver Ireland, who says, this channel needs more subs over time. I have subscribed to some and then unsubscribed. The content here is great. Thanks for that. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. And yeah, hopefully we can grow the channel a bit more so over the few remaining months of the year. It hasn't grown massively this year. A big reason of that is me, in the first 3 months of this year, I didn't really upload anything, and then started uploading again at the start of preseason testing, and hasn't been as much content this year as there were 2 years ago in 2019, where I did gain, 7,000 or 8,000 subs that year. So, we'll see what we get to at the end of the year, but, yeah, I'm hoping, for the end of this year, I'm hoping we can have it, say, at least 12,000 subscribers. Any more than that would be, I think, pretty good. I mean, if we were to get to, say, 15,000, I think that would be a pretty good year for the channel. As Antonio Giovinazzi is halfway, or not even halfway, mostly through his lap now. Just passing the Mercedes of Hamilton to complete his lap. He'll probably go into 5th place, I think, with this lap, just ahead of the two Haas's. As also now we've got Nicholas Latifi on the channel. On the track, sorry. So, yeah, Giovinazzi, he does indeed go into 5th place. So there you go. Giovinazzi up to 5th, about 0.03 of a second slower than Yuki Tsunoda. As Lewis Hamilton comes back into the pits, and Latifi starts his first flying lap of the sessions. We're already 20 minutes in, basically, to practice 3, as Sergio Perez is out on circuit. So I'm going to say that Max Verstappen will probably come out in a moment as well. And here comes Lando Norris, who's also on an out lap. Here comes Fernando Alonso, who we're seeing on the TV screen. And another thing I want to say as well when it comes to the channel is there will be content in terms of recorded videos, proper recorded, edited videos coming very soon. I've got videos that I've already started the editing process with certain videos. I've got 3 planned to come out during the summer break. Yeah, they've all been started in terms of the editing process. I just need to, get on with it. Basically, and it is a bit hard at the moment because I've had a bit of a stressful week. So, but once, this race is over and done with, then I should be able to crack on and get those 3 videos out before, say, that race week of Spa. So hopefully, yeah, there'll be 3 videos, recorded videos out between, say, now and the 2nd, 23rd of August, something like that. And then, after that, there will be the occasional recorded video between, say, the end of August and the middle of December, of course, when the season, when that's the rest of the season, there will be an occasional recorded video here and there. And then, when the winter break comes, I am planning to upload plenty of videos then. So I will, like I said, I will gradually upload videos, and hopefully the process will speed up. But yeah, just give me a bit of time, and then, you know, once I get going, then it should be all good. As Nicholas Latifi has completed his first timed run, and he has gone up to 6th place. Pretty good time for Latifi, because he's only 0.03 of a second slower than Antonio Giovinazzi. So, good time there for Latifi. As Sergio Perez, Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc currently on a lap. Perez got very wide on the entry to the turn 6-7 chicane there. I lost the rear end a bit as he's on the soft compound tyre. Lando Norris is currently on a lap. He's on the medium. We've also got, Vettel on track, Verstappen, Alonso. I think we've got everybody on track now except Gasly, Bottas, and I think Stroll as well. As Sergio Perez did do a purple first sector, a green middle sector. We'll see what his time is as he comes round the final corner to the line, and Perez only goes third, about 0.6 of a second down, as Norris is backed off on this lap, so he must have had an issue somewhere. And yeah, Perez 0.6 of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton on that lap. As Charles Leclerc rounds the final corner, passing a slow McLaren, I think, of Daniel Ricciardo on his way through there. And Leclerc comes to the line, and he now goes up to third on a 1 minute 18.9. So Charles Leclerc is up into third position. Only, half a tenth, or say 0.75 of a tenth behind his teammate Carlos Sainz. Sebastian Vettel has gone up into 7th place for Aston Martin. There you go. Vettel up into 7th. He was up into 6th then, but Esteban Ocon has gone up into P4. Ocon, a good first run there for him, and hopefully that new chassis will mean he'll get back to the performance of earlier in the season, as Max Verstappen does his first timed run, and what a time that is, a 1:17.5, 0.7 of a second quicker than anybody else, and the next quickest car is indeed Lewis Hamilton. So brilliant time there for Max Verstappen, as he usually does in practice 3. Comes out almost very similar to Michael Schumacher, first lap of the day, bangs in an amazing hot lap, and there you go, try and beat that, as Alonso goes up to 10th. Let me just try and update some of the order, as we've now got the McLarens coming through, as Ricciardo only goes 15th, even though there's only 17 times on the board. Yeah, it's currently Verstappen, Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon, Perez, Raikkonen, and then Vettel, was 8th, but now Lando Norris is up into 5th place. And a couple tenths behind the Ferraris, which, considering I think Ferrari should be quicker around this circuit over a single lap, I mean, that's pretty good for practice 3. So, yeah, Norris up to 5th. Here's a replay, I think, of Latifi suffering possibly I think a slight broken wing mirror there. I think a stone maybe kicked up and hit the mirror. But yeah, the current top 10 is Verstappen, Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, and then Norris, Ocon, Perez, Raikkonen, Vettel, and then Mick Schumacher is up in 10th place. And then you've got Giovinazzi P11. And then Fernando Alonso is up in 12th place. As actually Nicholas Latifi has gone all the way up to 5th place in the Williams. So great lap there by the Canadian. The Latifi up to 5th. Plenty of cars in the way of Valtteri Bottas, but they thankfully get out of the way, as he's coming into the final sector now. Has done a purple middle sector as Bottas rounds the final corner. We'll get a bit of a slipstream from the car ahead. I think a Haas F1 car. And Bottas does go into P1 by 0.08 of a second. So Valtteri Bottas is P1 at the moment in the Mercedes. So We just update that. Valtteri Bottas into P1 as Pierre Gasly comes to the line, by the way, and goes up to 9th place on the medium compound of tyre. So there you go. But Bottas is P1 from Verstappen, Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, Latifi, Norris, Ocon, and then Gasly is in 9th place, and then you've got Sebastian Vettel in 10th, Perez 11th, Raikkonen 12th, and then in 13th place is Russell in the Williams, who has been pretty good around here over a single lap. Even in 2019 here, he was very quick, I remember. So should be another strong weekend for him. Schumacher 14th, and then you've got Giovinazzi 15th, Alonso 16th, and then Tsunoda 17th, and then Ricciardo, Mazepin, and I was going to say Stroll, but Stroll has just gone up to 17th place. So Stroll up to 17th in the Aston Martin, and the Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Mazepin, the final three with 33, or 34 basically, minutes to go in this session. Got to say with Valtteri Bottas, it's a bit weird with him when it comes to this circuit, because when we come here to the Hungaroring, we don't normally list this circuit as a circuit where Valtteri Bottas normally is very strong. But if you look at, since he's been at Mercedes and his performance compared to Lewis Hamilton, it really should be listed as a strong circuit for him, because he outqualified Hamilton here in 2017 and beat him. Even though there were a bit of, Hamilton, I think, was let through by Bottas to try and get after the Ferraris, and then Hamilton let him back through. But ultimately, Bottas, I think, deserved to finish ahead of him. And then 2018, he put it on the front row and was second for a while until contact, I think, with Sebastian Vettel. 2019, he outqualified Lewis Hamilton and then just, got swiped by Charles Leclerc. And then even 2020, where he finished in third, even though Lewis Hamilton, in qualifying was spectacular, Bottas was only, I think, a tenth of a second slower. So this is definitely a strong circuit for Valtteri Bottas, without doubt. So we shouldn't look at this track and think, well, yeah, Lewis Hamilton's going to easily win. I mean, Lewis Hamilton should be quicker, but I don't think the gap between Hamilton and Bottas is going to be massive or anything. So, yeah, watch out for Valtteri Bottas, because he still should be pretty quick. And this is a circuit where he should be good, because it is a technical circuit, as Charles Leclerc on the exit of the turn 6-7 chicane, losing the rear end a bit. Just, I think, applying the throttle a bit too hard out of the corner, what the car was demanding at that point. As, by the way, Sergio Perez has gone up to 4th place. He's only, 300ths or 400ths of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton, but about 7/10 slower than teammate Max Verstappen. So he's got to get that gap down, probably by another 2 or 3 tenths, honestly. Saying that, this is not a Sergio Perez stronghold, this circuit. It really isn't. He's never really had, from what I can remember, he's not really ever had a good race weekend at the Hungaroring. So I'm not really expecting anything at all from Sergio Perez this weekend. I think when we get to Spa and Monza, where definitely he's a lot stronger, I think we'll see a lot more from Perez there. But around this circuit, I just don't see what Perez really is going to be able to do, unless something happens dramatically to the top 3 in qualifying or the race. As your top 10 is Bottas, Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, Latifi, and then Ocon, Gasly, with half an hour to go. Again, just to let you guys know, I will be live later in about, 2 hours from now for the qualifying watch-along for, of course, qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for that. And as well, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can, as Pierre Gasly is also on a flying lap, as Fernando Alonso has jumped up into 12th place, I believe. He has. And Daniel Ricciardo is on an improved lap. I say improved, but it's not really that much better, as he's down in 19th place. And Gasly definitely on an improved lap. This lap from Gasly should put him somewhere around the Ferraris or Nicholas Latifi, as Daniel Ricciardo comes to the line and only goes 18th. That's very poor from him, as Gasly goes, up to 5th even, ahead of the 2 Ferraris, and he is the quickest out of the midfield runners there. It's a very good lap there for Pierre Gasly. And this is a strong circuit for Gasly. If you look at, I think 2018, he qualified well here and finished in 6th place in the Toro Rosso. 2019 for Red Bull, this was really the race that lost him his job, because he had a poor start to the race and ended up finishing in, I think, 6th place in the Grand Prix, and was lapped again by his teammate at the time, Max Verstappen, as Charles Leclerc goes up to 6th ahead of Sainz. But he still did qualify in 6th place at that Grand Prix. And then last year, I thought he did pretty well, even though he retired from the race with an engine problem. He got into the top 10, into Q3, with that same problem. So I thought he did pretty well last year at this circuit. Never really got a chance to show how good he really could have been because of reliability trouble. So not really a surprise that Gasly is showing so strongly. And really, this is a driver's circuit, the Hungaroring, because there are so many fast, tough corners, especially turn 4 being one of them, being a great example of those, really tough corners that does take on the drivers. So, really, around a circuit like this, you're going to really find out who the best drivers on the grid are. That's why you do normally see, say, Hamilton and Verstappen even stronger here compared to the rest of the field at a circuit like this, compared to another circuit like, say, Bahrain or Paul Ricard or something like that. Because this circuit definitely massively challenges the drivers every step of the way. As talking of Lewis Hamilton, he is now on an outlap in the Mercedes on another set of soft compound tyres, as Valtteri Bottas has just come back into the pits. I'm going to guess he'll come back out soon enough. And Hamilton will see what he can do. He is currently 3/4 of a second slower than Valtteri Bottas, which of course is a lot of lap time. But Bottas did set his time quite a bit after Hamilton on a bit more of a rubbered in circuit, so Hamilton should be a lot quicker on this lap, and with that first initial lap he did, he could have gone half a second quicker anyway. So, I was going to say, I'm expecting this lap to be quicker, but he's not even got the DRS open, so Hamilton maybe isn't quite going for it just yet, or maybe doing a bit of a higher field run to give the team some valuable data. We'll have to see. As he's coming through turn 3 now. Now coming up to the run, or running up to turn 4. And yeah, he's not really pushing. We have seen this season, I mean, maybe he's doing another warm-up lap. We have seen this season Mercedes do struggle to warm their tyres up for qualifying. So, it's not really a surprise if that's what's happening, but I don't believe it is. I do think this is a bit of a higher field run, because he's not exactly doing the typical tyre warm-up stuff, and he's 3.5 seconds off Bottas after 2 sectors. So yeah, that definitely sounds and looks like a higher field run, just to give the team more data on this tyre. And, of course, more data for the race, especially if it's as hot as this. Plus 50 degrees track temperature as he runs down turn 1. Again, does Lewis Hamilton. And at the moment, it's the only cars on track are Hamilton, Leclerc, Gasly, Stroll, Raikkonen, Ricciardo, and Yuki Tsunoda. And Hamilton just really, he's not touring around, but he's not really doing anything of note massively in this at this current point in this session, as Max Verstappen is still in the pits. I don't think Red Bull are going to be doing anything similar, really, because Red Bull do tend to be a lot more aggressive with their fuel load in practice 3, really, than any other team. And that's why Red Bull do tend to be a lot quicker on a Saturday morning than they are on a Friday. And of course, now the teams have locked into their, the engine mode that they must use for the rest of the weekend. So they can't really sandbag that much in terms of their performance. The only thing they can really play around with to try and hide how quick they are is the fuel. As Charles Leclerc coming in for I was going to say a practice pit stop, but I don't even think it's that. No, he's going to come back into the pits as we've got a bit of a lull in the action. I'll just clear my nose quickly. As, cars on track right now. Hamilton, Gasly, Stroll. Stroll is on an outlap, so hopefully he's going to go for a bit of a flying run there. Raikkonen, I think Raikkonen's doing a race run at the moment because he's been out on track for quite a bit of time. And, now Yuki Tsunoda comes out on an outlap, so we'll see what happens there with Stroll and Tsunoda, whether they do go for a proper lap, as I don't actually think I've updated the rest of the order outside the top 10. So the top 10, well, Kimi Raikkonen has just gone up to 8th place, so maybe it wasn't a race run. The Raikkonen is up to 8th there, as also updating. Leclerc's up to 5th. So the top 10 is Bottas with 23 minutes to go in practice 3. The top 10 is Bottas, Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, Leclerc, Gasly, Sainz, Raikkonen, Latifi, Norris. And then the rest of the order is Ocon, Stroll, Vettel, Alonso. And then Ricciardo is up to 15th. And then it's Russell, Schumacher, Giovinazzi, Tsunoda, Mazepin. That is your order currently in practice 3. Got to say Ricciardo, as Sky F1 have gone to an ad break, so I can't really give you any updates as to what's going on right now. They'll be back in a couple minutes, though. With Ricciardo, don't really be surprised if he's not that great this weekend, because, I know he won here in 2014, but if you look at, say, his qualifying performances around the Hungaroring, most of the time it's not been that good. 2014 even, he was out-qualified by Sebastian Vettel. I think Vettel was on the front row for that Grand Prix, and Ricciardo was down in, I think, 4th or 5th place. So even, in the dry, normal conditions there, Vettel was quicker than Ricciardo. Just in the race, Ricciardo, as he normally does, dealt with the conditions very well. 2015 was a pretty good race. 2016 also. But then 2017, he got knocked out by Verstappen on the first lap, but his qualifying effort wasn't exactly great. 2018 also. 2019, he got knocked out in Q1. He did get a bit held up by another driver, though, but his pace wasn't really that spectacular. And then last year, even, in the Renault, it wasn't really a strong track for Renault, but his pace, again, wasn't really that great. So don't expect that much from Ricciardo this weekend. I will say again, I don't think Ricciardo has had that bad of a season. Yes, it's not as good as Lando Norris, but if Norris was, say, not as good as he has been, I think Ricciardo would be appreciated a bit more in terms of what he has done this season. And really for Ricciardo, his aim has got to be, in terms of the race results, finishing in the top 6. And if you look at this season, he has actually done that a few times. Imola, he finished in the top 6. Spain, he finished in the top 6. France, he finished in the top 6. Silverstone, he finished in the top 6. And there's been other races. I think one of the races in Austria, he came from 13th or 14th on the grid and finished in P7. Portugal, we went from 16th to 10th, I think. So he's had a pretty good season, Ricciardo, considering it's his first season. He's still getting used to the team. He is getting better with time. We can clearly see that. But I just do think that Lando Norris's amazing performances are definitely making Ricciardo's season look worse than it actually has been. It's not been a great season or a very good season for Ricciardo, but it's not been anywhere near as bad as people would make out. Let me find some other comments here in the chat whilst we're on an ad break on Sky. Erin asks, if you had a new F1 team, which two drivers would you pick this current grid and pair together, regardless of the current teams and pairs? If I was a new F1 team and I could pick anyone, I would go, and the only reason I would go for this number one driver is really because of the future, because Lewis Hamilton, who I'm not going to pick, is, you know, he's not past it. He's still very, very, very great, and I still think he is the best. But for the future, I would have Max Verstappen as my number one driver. But if I can't pick, say, a pairing that's already there, because really I would actually go for Verstappen and Perez, because I think that combination as a number one, number two partnership is actually really good. It's the perfect number one, number two driver partnership, really, that we have on the grid. But if I can't pick Perez, then I'd probably go for, say, Ricciardo. I mean, Ricciardo's not going to be really a number two driver, but he will still be up there and helping the team. And Verstappen Ricciardo was a great driver lineup. It really was. Not just in terms of entertainment, of course, but in terms of pure results, given the pace, the car they were driving in 2016, 17, 18. I thought they did pretty well in their time together. As Carlos Sainz, by the way, on the soft compound tyre, has gone second. Only 0.07 of a second slower than Valtteri Bottas. The midfield runners now start to use the soft compound tyres. Also, Lando Norris has gone up to 4th place. So it's Bottas, Sainz, Verstappen, and then Norris, Hamilton, Perez, Leclerc, Gasly, Raikkonen, Latifi. As, who is this we're looking at? Lewis Hamilton, who is coming back into the pit lane after that, I think, race run he did, as Max Verstappen still not coming out on circuit at the moment. He's in the car, but there's no tyres on it right now, as Valtteri Bottas further improves his time to a 17 flat. Valtteri Bottas stays in 1st place, as there's a yellow flag in Sector 2 and Sector 3, and that's going to be a red flag, probably. And it is Mick Schumacher, I believe, in the barriers. Yes, it is Mick Schumacher. I think it's the entry to turn 11. I think that's where it is. And yes, it is. It's the and the car, the rear end. Well, the rear end was already going away from him in turn 9. And yeah, another example, as they just showed the replay there, turns into turn 11, and the rear end says, no, I'm not doing that. Sorry, that's just not possible. And then he goes right into the barriers on the left-hand side. And that, like I said, is a clear example that the Haas F1 car, I mean, obviously it's a poor car, but the rear end is so unstable on that car that I do have to say we have to give a bit of sympathy to Nikita Mazepin, because even Mick Schumacher has struggled at times with the rear end. And I've got to say, the front left corner of that Haas car has been quite thoroughly whacked and destroyed. So we'll see what the teams can, the team Haas F1, we'll see what they can do to get that repaired in time. They should be able to get it repaired in time, because it's 2 hours and 15 minutes till qualifying, so they should be able to get that repaired in time. But does mean a bit more work than they would have been open for going into qualifying later on. as we do have a red flag. I mean, the timer is going to keep ticking because that's what it does in practice sessions when we have a red flag. They don't stop the timer because it would really mess up the weekend if we had to stop the timer for every red flag in practice. And yeah, Mick is just getting out of the car now and putting the steering wheel, I think, back on. And he'll quickly get in the medical car and just get back to the pits. I don't think he'll have to visit the medical centre because I don't think the impact would have been that big in terms of the G-force. And I don't think it would have really, in terms of the sensors they have that indicate that he needs to have an immediate visit to the medical centre. I don't think that would have been triggered. So he should be fine. Looks fine to me. As they're just trying to remove the car. Don't think the barrier's really been damaged. And as they show a replay, I mean, you can see it in turn 10. He runs a bit wide in turn 10 with understeer. Even in turn... sorry, not turn 10, but in turn 9, you can see him losing the rear end. But even in the corner right before turn 11, which is turn 10, the flat-out left-hander, he even loses the rear end slightly through that corner. And that's flat out. So, like I said, the rear end on that car is absolutely abysmal. And when you have a rear end on a car like that, there's nothing you can do. But just hope that when you throw it into a fast corner, where the rear end, you know, you're really demanding a lot of the rear end at that point and hoping that you've got good rear downforce. You're just hoping when you're in a car like that it's not going to spin. Rather than being able to control it. As the session, hopefully, should get back underway in probably 5 minutes from now. Don't know what we'll see at the end of the session. Hopefully, we'll see some final, say, runs. In the final 10 minutes or so, as they're just taking the car away now. So the amount of marbles offline on the outer part of the circuit is absolutely enormous already. And they're just taking it to a part of the circuit where they can actually get it back in a safe manner. And the barrier, to me, or the tyre barrier, to me, doesn't look like it's been really that damaged. So I don't think they'll have to really do any massive repairs on the barrier there. So we'll see if we do get any final runs here. We should hopefully get some final runs in this session. Erin, also, who would you say would not work well as a pair? Not Hamilton and Verstappen or Mazepin. I would say Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel. I think if they were a partnership, I think that would be fireworks a lot of the time. Because if you look at whenever they came to blows on track when Vettel was at Ferrari, say in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, the amount of times they had contact and there was controversy between those two. I mean, like I said, if those two were teammates, it would be chaos. And I think that's a big reason why Red Bull did not want to take Sebastian Vettel back, is because they knew him and Verstappen would be a cocktail full of disaster. It really would. It'd be even worse, I think, than Vettel and Webber from back in the day, because, like I said, the amount of times Vettel and Verstappen have made contact in the past, it would be a disaster. Yeah, that would be, I mean, it'd be exciting to see, because whenever they did come to blows on circuit, it would be, you know, dramatic and all of that. But if you're running a Formula One team, I think definitely those two you would not want to have on the same team, because it would inevitably boil over and you'd have a really bad situation on your hands. Aaron also says, I would have loved if they did Russell and Lando. I thought they might do it this year, but instead they took Ricciardo. Would have been interesting to see how they went. It would have been, especially considering we don't quite know still how good Russell is. I mean, we know he's very, very good, Russell, but we don't still know how good he is compared to Norris, Ricciardo, Vettel, Alonso. I mean, he's performing very well in that Williams, but until he gets into a car that is comparable, very hard to say. But I do think Russell, if he was put in the same car as Lando Norris, I do think Russell would outperform Lando Norris. Because he did in F2, and I think he would again in F1, because I don't see how Russell has really got any worse. I think he's got better, definitely with his speed and confidence in Formula 1. So, as Red Bull, just looking at the rear wing, I think, on Verstappen's Red Bull. But, yeah, I think Russell, if he was teammates with Lando Norris, I'm not sure if he would outperform Norris in the races where it really matters. But I think in qualifying, I think Russell would be the quicker of the two. And if Russell is indeed going to Mercedes in 2022, then it will be very interesting to see how he does compared to Lewis Hamilton, who, of course, is the god of speed. As the session is back underway right now, as we have, 9 minutes to go. Lots of cars on the exit of the pit lane, so it looks as though we are going to get some final quick runs in practice 3. As Esteban Ocon not going very quickly. I don't know if Ocon has got a problem or what. As Ricardo, I think that was, just having to let Russell through in the pit lane. And now Valtteri Bottas about to do a practice start. Also Sergio Perez coming out on circuit. But at the moment, I think you'd have to say, I mean, Lewis Hamilton hasn't really shown his hand. So it's hard to say with Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton on that only real flying lap he's done, like I said, he could have gone at least half a second quicker. And then he came out again, but did some higher field running. So it's hard to say really where Lewis Hamilton is. But given where Valtteri Bottas is and what Max Verstappen and Red Bull are doing, you'd have to say at the moment, Mercedes look like the favourites for pole position. Will it be a front row for them? I'm not sure, but it's looking very good, without doubt. It's looking very, very good. And if Mercedes, even if Hamilton was to win and Verstappen was, second, and Verstappen was still just about leading the championship going into the summer break, if Mercedes were to win this Grand Prix, without doubt, the momentum behind them going into the summer break and the rest of the season would be absolutely enormous. So, that's going to be an unsafe release fine or penalty or something. Lance Stroll coming down the pit lane. Giovinazzi released into the path, and actually there was contact. Brief contact between Giovinazzi's front wing and Stroll's rear tyre. So, yeah, that's going to be a big fine, I think, for Alfa Romeo. For that, as Sainz there trying to pass Antonio Giovinazzi on this outlap. But like I said, even if Verstappen still finishes as second, but Hamilton can win this race and close the gap to, say, 1 point or 2 points, depending on who gets the fastest lap or whatever, then you'd have to say, again, all the momentum would then be behind Hamilton and Mercedes, and you'd have to say that they're back in the, the pound seat. You'd have to say that. And here's another replay of Stroll and Giovinazzi, and yeah, slight contact right rear on the front wing of Giovinazzi there, as Stroll was coming out, and yeah, that's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if he got a grid penalty for that, but they don't normally give out grid penalties for unsafe releases. The practice sessions, normally it would just be a fine. But he'll definitely get, or not he, but, Alfa Romeo will definitely get a fine for that incident, as Max Verstappen is now out on the soft tyre and is on a flying lap. So we'll see what Max Verstappen can do, as Yuki Tsunoda, by the way, is up to 12th. And Max Verstappen does a massively quick first sector, already 3 tenths quicker than Valtteri Bottas. in Sector 1 alone. That is an amazing first sector as Charles Leclerc goes up to 4th. I just want to update the order, though. Fernando Alonso did go up into 6th place. That will be replaced in a moment by Ocon, as Verstappen still 3.5 tenths of a second quicker than Bottas on this lap. So Verstappen responding big time and showing that he does indeed have the speed here. As Verstappen rounds the final corner. And Max Verstappen now up to DRS. And Max Verstappen does go P1, does lose quite a bit of time in the final sector, which is not a surprise. But Max Verstappen goes quickest by 1.5 tenths on a 1 minute 16.9. That's now Lewis Hamilton, who has done a purple middle sector. Let's see what he can do as he comes into the final corner now. Rear end a bit snaky. Now opens the DRS, and Lewis Hamilton does go P1 by 0.08 of a second. So Lewis Hamilton finally shows his hand and shows that he does have the speed for pole position later today. So it's Hamilton with 4 minutes to go in practice 3. It's Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, your top 3. And then Sainz 4th, Leclerc 5th. And then Norris, Perez in 7th. And then Daniel Ricciardo is up into 8th place for McLaren. And then you've got Esteban Ocon 9th, Fernando Alonso in 10th place. Alpine looking not as strong as they were yesterday, but looking better than they were earlier in the session. Sebastian Vettel in 11th. As here's a replay of Gasly getting held up by an Alfa Romeo who was dawdling really on the racing line on the penultimate corner. That's a shame. If that happened in qualifying, then that Alfa Romeo, don't know who it was, would definitely have got a penalty. So yeah, Vettel is 11th, and then you got Stroll in 12th, Gasly 13th, and then Raikkonen, Russell in 15th, and then Latifi, Tsunoda, Schumacher, Giovinazzi, and Mazepin. That is your order right now. As we'll see if we get any more runs here. I don't think we will. As Norris, I think, improved his time on the medium compound tyre, which is quite impressive by him in the final 2.5 minutes now of practice 3. And I wouldn't be surprised if everyone just came back into the pits now, really, to end their session. As Perez does come out on track on I think on a set of soft tyres. So we'll see if he does go for a lap or whether he just does a test lap or something to test out a system. Or, just comes back into the pits to do a practice start or something. We'll see in a moment. There's also Leclerc, Sainz and Verstappen on an outlap. Here's a replay of Valtteri Bottas. I think on his lap, didn't improve on his time, did Bottas. And at the turn 6 and 7 chicane, he simply carried too much speed in, collected understeer, and went straight on at the chicane, bumped over the yellow curb, and lives to fight another day. But Valtteri Bottas, I think, could probably go quicker than what he's done there, but looking pretty close up front. Only, quarter of a second at most, by the looks of it, covering the top 3. So I think definitely in qualifying later, we're going to have a very close fight between Hamilton, Verstappen and Bottas for pole position. And it will, of course, be massively important, pole position. Because, we've seen in races here in the past, when you do get pole, it is very important for your race result. Pole has won here in, 2020, 2018, 2017, 2013, 2012, it won here. It's won here plenty of times. It's not as good as, say, the Circuit de Catalunya, in terms of that circuit being very clinical. In terms of if you get pole position, the chances of you winning the race are a lot higher at that circuit than here. But given the nature of the circuit, and unless it's, unusual conditions for the race, then it should be whoever gets pole should have a very, very great chance of winning the Grand Prix tomorrow. Sergio Perez is on a final flying run as we're now at the end of the session, as Fernando Alonso goes up into 9th place. Yeah, Gasly goes into 10th place. Let me just update that. The Gasly up to 10th, and then Ocon, Vettel, Stroll, and then Yuki Tsunoda is up into 14th. As Sergio Perez has not improved any of his sectors so far. Currently down in P7. So we'll see what Sergio Perez does here. Comes to the final corner of turn 14. And Sergio Perez does not improve his time and goes about 3 or 4 hundredths of a second slower on that lap than he did his personal best. But as Lance Stroll pops up into 10th place. So there you go. Lance Stroll up to 10th. And don't think this is a... No, Lewis Hamilton has already finished. Even though he's pushing quite hard on this lap. Lewis Hamilton has seen the checkered flag. So he won't be improving anymore, as Giovinazzi only climbs up to 18th place, which is a bit embarrassing for him. Normally, over a single lap, he's a lot quicker than Kimi Räikkönen, but currently 4 tenths down, or at the end of the session, 4 tenths down on Kimi Räikkönen. So he'll have to improve a lot on that. But by the looks of it, guys, that is it for practice 3. And like I said, I'll be live in an hour and a half from now at 1:30 p.m. UK time as Max Verstappen, they're just showing a replay of him at the final corner going straight on and going a bit wide at the final corner onto the green Astro there. But yeah, I will be live in an hour and a half from now for the qualifying watch along. So guys, don't forget to come along to that. And again, subscribe and hit the notifications bell for that. Don't forget to smash the like button on this video and share this video and channel everywhere you can. Thank you guys for coming along. And yeah, until that qualifying watch along in an hour and a half, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.